The great library of Oakhaven was a cathedral of silence and ancient paper, a place where the scent of aged leather and dust felt more like home to Luke than his own apartment. Luke was a young man who lived for the weight of a heavy book in his hands, finding more life in the translated scrolls of lost empires than in the modern world outside. He spent his days navigating the towering shelves, searching for fragments of history that others had long since forgotten. He believed he was the only person left in the world who truly felt the pulse of history between his fingertips. It was during one of these deep dives into the archives that he noticed someone else. Usually, the rare book section was a lonely place, but there was a girl standing by the shelf of medieval chronicles, pulling a massive, iron-bound volume from a high shelf with a practiced ease. This was Nora. They began to talk, their conversation flowing naturally as they walked between the aisles. Luke was stunned to find that Nora shared his exact obsession. She didn't just look at the pictures, she understood the nuances of the prose, the hidden meanings behind the script, and the sheer beauty of ancient literature. They spent hours discussing the evolution of storytelling and the mysteries hidden within the margins of old texts. It was a rare, electric connection. Neither of them had ever met someone who truly understood the thrill of finding a lost sentence or a forgotten map. A few days later, they met again near the same alcove. Luke was visibly excited, his eyes bright with a discovery he couldn't keep to himself. He told Nora that he had found something truly bizarre in a rare codex, something that didn't belong in a standard historical record. It was a section that had been intentionally damaged. The pages crumpled and the ink faded as if someone had tried to scrub the words from existence. He didn't want to discuss it in the public space of the library, so he invited Nora back to his home to see the original page for herself. Luke's apartment was a sanctuary of parchment and candlelight, a maze of stacked books and flickering shadows. On his heavy oak desk sat the book. Nora leaned in, her eyes widening as she traced the rough, distorted parchment. The text described an alchemical process, a ritual for the Great Exchange. It claimed that by preparing a specific infusion of rare herbs and holding hands while drinking it, two souls could swap their physical forms. They laughed at the absurdity of it. It was surely just a fable, a piece of ancient fiction tucked away by a bored scribe centuries ago. But there was a spark of curiosity in the air. Nora suggested, half joking, that they should try it just to see if anything happened. It would be a story to tell, a way to pass a rainy evening by bringing a forgotten myth to life. They gathered the ingredients, the atmosphere thick with the scent of dried lavender and sharp spices. They brewed the liquid in a ceramic bowl, watching as the steam turned a strange, iridescent silver. Following the instructions, Luke and Nora stood facing each other in the center of the room. They reached out and gripped each other's hands tightly, their palms warm and hearts racing. On the count of 3, they drank the infusion. The world suddenly tilted. A roar like 1,000 closing books filled their ears. A brilliant, blinding light erupted from the point where their hands met, and for a long, breathless minute, the floor seemed to fall away, and they both lost consciousness. When the silence returned, the person on the left was the first to wake up. She, Luke, felt a strange, light grace in her limbs that had never been there before. She tried to sit up, but found the movement unexpectedly fluid. She looked down and saw a pair of slender, delicate hands. Panic set in, and she rushed to the mirror on the wall. The reflection staring back was not the young man who had started the evening. Instead, a stunningly beautiful girl looked back, with long, flowing hair and features that were soft and ethereal. Luke was mesmerized by the transformation. She was gorgeous, yet the realization that this was her new reality was terrifying. Nearby, the other person began to stir. He, Nora, felt a sudden heavy power in his limbs, a broadness in the shoulders that was entirely new. He stood up, towering over the desk, feeling the solid strength of a man's frame. He ran a hand over a sharp jawline and through short, dark hair. He looked at the person across the room and gasped. The voice that came out was deep and resonant, a complete departure from the voice he had known for a lifetime. They stood in the center of the room, staring at one another in a state of profound shock. Luke was now a girl of incredible beauty, and Nora had become a strikingly handsome man. The fear was there, pulsing in the room, but beneath the fear was a growing sense of awe. They couldn't stop looking at each other, admiring the perfection of their new forms. The magic had worked with a precision that was both terrifying and magnificent. "We can't tell anyone about this," Nora said, his new, deep voice echoing against the walls. "No one would believe us, and if they did, we would never be free." Luke nodded, looking down at her new, elegant hands.
It has to stay between us, our secret.
They sat together among the ancient books, the weight of their new lives beginning to settle. Luke glanced back at the desk where the old codex lay. The page that had held the instructions was now completely smooth and white, the ink having vanished as if it had never been there. They both knew they would eventually have to search for a way to reverse the magic, to find the hidden lore that could bridge the gap back to who they were. But as they caught their reflections in the glass of the bookshelves, admiring the stunning strangers they had become, there was a silent, unspoken feeling that the search for a cure could wait, just for a little while.